This is Common Knowledge, a Magic the Gathering podcast about improving at the game with a focus on pauper play. It's not about the cost, it's about the knowledge. Welcome to Common Knowledge. Here are your hosts, Brandon Clark and Lobbert. Enjoy this week's episode of Common Knowledge.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Common Knowledge Podcast. This is episode 13. I'm your host, Brandon, and joined with me is Sean, aka Lobbert. He goes by Lobbert sometimes.
Hello.
We got a sweet show lined up for you guys today, because as you know, we've had a set drop on us, and with a new set means new commons, so set review. But before we dive into all of that, let's just give a shout out to our sponsor, puremtgo.com. Check them out for awesome magic-related content, articles and deck lists and such. If you enjoy the show, you can go ahead and support us on patreon.com/commonknowledge. And don't forget to check out our other affiliate podcast, the Constructive Criticism Podcast, hosted by Spencer Howland, and the Limited Time Only Podcast, also hosted by Spencer Howland. So, Sean, do you have a shout out?
Yeah.
That you want to shout out today?
I played against a cool guy named Beer Lion. He watches my videos and he listens to this podcast. He gave me some great feedback, and we both commiserated on playing against chittering rats.
That's a cool story. Because here, I didn't know that people listen to our podcast. I thought we were just talking into the void. Well, hey, thank you, Bear Lion, for listening to us and for the support. We really appreciate it. So let's move into our first topic for the day, our card of the week. Sean, what are it?
This week, I chose for the card of the week, Coalition Honor Guard. If you're not familiar, it's a 4-cost, 3 and a white for a 2/4 human flag bearer. It says, when choosing targets as part of a spell or ability, you must choose at least one flag bearer on the battlefield, which usually is just Coalition Honor Guard. If you have your own Coalition Honor Guard or some other flag bearer, you can target your own creature still, but that almost never comes up. The reason...
Are there any other relevant flag bearers besides Coalition Honor Guard and
Standard Bearer?
Is Standard Bearers a flag bearer?
Yeah, they both are flag bearers, and they have the same text box.
Right. So like, there's no like other flag bearers that you could like play tribal flag bearers and
changelings.
Oh wow, that's cool. I always forget about those little guys.
Yeah, there's not very many, but I know that there's some like weird versions of like Tron that will play, a changeling or two. The weird moose one, the jelly moose that they play it as an additional either herd RX or the artifact creature that's a 4/4 that goes and gets more of itself. Self-assembler, I believe it is, and you don't really bring in flag bearer against that, but it's worth bringing up at least. Anyway, I'm seeing this more lately instead of the standard bearer. I don't think there's a whole lot of boggles running around, which is why you run the other one. You see it out of like Tron sideboards and Pestilence sideboards. Pestilence has to run this one because the standard bearer just dies to your own Pestilence too much.
They don't want to kill their creature with Pestilence. They want to keep it around.
And the reason I actually wanted to bring this up, other than that it's just becoming more prevalent, is I'm playing that all-women deck still, which is an enchantment-based deck, and I know that this interaction is also relevant in heroic decks. They can play their standard bearer of some kind, the flag bearer, and you're kind of locked out of the game. Those decks do also play protection effects or like Chomino's Blessing, and if you give their creature protection from white, that gives you the go-ahead to go crazy on your own creatures again. And I didn't realize that until after the game, so I just wanted to share that interesting interaction with the world.
That is a very cool interaction. It's sort of, for newer players, sort of unintuitive, right?
Yeah, I've been playing forever,
you think about.
And I didn't see it. I had a Chomino's Blessing like chilling in my hand forever, and I was waiting for more burn.
And you could have just given that flag bearer the blessing, and then just gone to town.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's not an. I mean, I don't know that I've ever played a deck with protection effects in it. So like, I've just never even thought of that interaction. So today when you mentioned it to me, it was kind of like, oh wow, cool beans. Yeah, I've just never thought about it. Like, how do I deal with a flag bearer? Like, I don't know. I just usually
Burn it.
don't care.
Yeah.
I just shred it if I need to. But so that's a pretty cool card. Why do you think it is again that he's getting more play than the standard bearer? Like, you mentioned that like Boggles is less played, so like you don't need to have the faster one. Is it just the decks that are playing him prefer to have the honor guard, or is there an upside to having the honor guard over the standard bearer?
I actually did take the time to ask my Pestilence opponent, and they said that for one, it was the toughness thing, and for two, they like that it can absorb multiple bolts. If you play it against burn, it eats multiple burn spells, rather than just a Searing Blaze or something. They have to take at least 2, and until they assemble those 2 that actually hit creatures, they can't do anything.
Okay, so it's a little bit of the deck that wants it, in the case of the Pestilence decks, and then there's also some metagame decisions that factor in there too.
Yeah, and I'm not actually sure that Boggles is seeing less play. I've just seen less of it rank in challenges.
I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever played against Boggles.
Yeah, it's very fringe. I want to say I don't enjoy playing it. That's not to say that nobody enjoys playing it, but
I think that a lot of Magic players have this. I don't know what word I want to use, but basically they like to play games of Magic that are interactive so that they can feel like I made a good play. And Boggles doesn't really do that, right?
Yeah, we all want to feel like a genius at the end of the day,
right.
And you can't really do that when the deck is just linear. You do A, B, C, D.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe this is a little off topic, but I think it's worth kind of talking about since we've kind of gone down we're kind of going down this rabbit hole here. But yeah, players want to feel like they're the ones making the decisions and they're the ones dictating the outcome of their game. But then there was some interesting talk on Twitter. I follow Rich Hagen, and he was talking about how, I can't remember exactly what his tweet was, but it was somewhere along the lines of like, if a new player at his first Pro Tour plays a linear deck, like Boggles or something, their win percentage is so much higher than a player whose first Pro Tour they come with like, say Jund, right? Mm-hmm. Where they have to make all these hard decisions against the best in the world. But then he also went on to say that like looking at the statistics of it and the amount of first time Pro Tour players, on average, the majority of those players play a non-linear deck, a deck that requires you to make good decisions and to play well. But then he's looked at the players that have showed up for their first Pro Tour with Boggles or Storm or some just all-in combo deck, and they statistically do better. So it's kind of an interesting thought. Like, if your goal is to like have fun and just play some fun games of Magic, don't play a deck like Boggles. But if like, you're looking to eke out as many percentage points as you possibly can, maybe making a meta call on one of these super linear decks is the right move. I know this is like way off topic, but I don't know. It just was something that was interesting that came up this week on Twitter that people were talking about, and we kind of moved ourselves down that rabbit hole a bit.
Are we ready to move on to what are we playing?
Yeah, I think so. Sean, what are you playing?
I'm still playing that all-women deck. It's improving. I've done things like I cut Firebrand Archer, and I'm playing Thraben Inspector now. The ETB effect is nice, and I think it was too ambitious to actually try to cast that many non-creature spells. It didn't add up to be enough, and the deck isn't quick enough. I would just rather have the value. And I'm working on the sideboard. It's a work in progress, but it's definitely making progress. I beat Delver. I've lost to Delver twice to the one time that I beat it. So it definitely needs work, but it's getting there. Nice. What are you playing this week?
Well, this week I kind of took a break from Scred, and I remember a while back, I think it was either in our power rankings episode or it was just one of the top eights. But it was a blue-black reanimator deck, but it was more just like a Delver, like a big blue-black Delver deck that had 4 copies of the reanimate spell. What is it called? Exhume. It had 4 copies of Exhume in it, and so I kind of threw my own. I couldn't remember where the deck list was, so I didn't bother looking for it. I just kind of threw my own version of the deck together. So it's 4 Delver of Secrets, 4 Gurmag Angler, and then my sort of reanimation hits and targets are 4 Muldrifters and 4 Striped Sidewinders.
Oh, Muldrifters. I think that's cool.
Yeah, so I can on 3 evoke the Muldrifter, get 2 cards, and then at a later point in the game, exhume it back. And so the deck also plays like a ton of removal. For cantrips, I think I've got 4 Brainstorm, 4 Ponders, and then to support that in the mana base, I'm playing 2 Evolving Wilds and 4 copies of Ash Barrens. And then they're just the typical mix of blue-black control interaction. So I'm playing a pretty typical mix of blue-black interaction spells. The counter spells I'm playing 4 copies of actual counterspell, 2 copies of Exclude, and I think that was it. And then in the removal side, I've got 3 copies of Disfigure, a couple copies of
Agony Warp,
Doomblade, and then 1 copy of Echoing Decay. And then I've got 1 copy of Mystical Teachings, and I think 2 Alchemy is what I was playing, kind of the mix there of spells. So
yeah, it seems way more interactive, which I like. And like you have the Muldrifter for card advantage, and it's not so glass cannon-y where if they play Relic of Progenitus, you're not just out of the game.
Yeah, like that's sort of what I was aiming for, just a much more grindy version of the deck where I just make an explosive threat in the form of Gurmag Angler, Delver of Secrets, or I can make a really fast Striped River Winder. And then it's just, it just grinds out advantage. And the downside of my opponent getting to exhume back a creature too is sort of mitigated by the fact that my creature is Muldrifter, or my creature is Striped River Winder. And
you do have the removal so that when it hits, you have something to do.
Right, I can just kill it or ignore it. I'll just attack them with my 5/5 Hexproof or fly over it with the Muldrifter, and I've already drawn 2 cards, and so I'm really not too far down in the exchange. But I haven't really had much time to test it out, so I'm kind of excited to go and play it and actually see how it does. And
it sounds like fun. I want to play against you.
Yeah. Bang! So that's what we're playing. Anything else we want to talk about before we move on to the main topic of today's show?
I want to talk about new Magic cards.
New Magic cards that aren't new because they're old. They're just new for us.
Yeah, new to Pauper.
Because, they're downshifted to common. New to Pauper. So, we've got the Magic 25th Anniversary Edition Masters Collection Grand Extravaganza set.
Is that what it's called? Like,
probably. That's what I would call it if I was WotC of the Coast. But, the set, I think if you're not a Pauper player, the set is a little underwhelming. And I know that there's been a lot of pushback on it, and this is the worst set ever made, and this is stinky poop garbage, and Wizards of the Coast hates us. But then if you're a Pauper player, I was really excited looking at the set review because there's some sweet cards.
Pauper players are excited about every set. There's always a little something for us. So you ready to get into these downshifts?
Heck yeah. Let's get in there. Get down and dirty with the downshifts.
So first off, we have the white cards. We have Fencing Ace, which is 1 and a white for a 1/1 human with double strike. The things that I wrote down that were significant with this was it's the first 2-cost double strike in white. Red has one with some like Jund ability on it, but this is the first one in white, which is probably the color that wants it the most.
Yeah, when I first saw Fencing Ace, I kind of immediately thought that this card would be decent in, you know, some form of the heroic deck or something, where maybe, I don't know if you can. I mean, it doesn't keep the buffs forever, but it's kind of like you just put them into play, and your creatures are already so susceptible to removal anyway that you kind of just play this guy, and you can put like one pump on him, and your opponent takes 1,000,000 damage.
Yeah, I want to say that I'm not huge on this card, and I don't think it'll see play in the heroic deck. I don't know what kind of shell this would want. I think we're not going to really see it around. That's where I'm at on it.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I don't think it'll get played, but if it does get played, I would think that the heroic shell would be the place that would play it. Mm-hmm. Next card that's on our list of downshifts is Geist of the Moors. So this is 1 white for a 3/1 spirit with flying. Sort of significant, I guess it's the first 3-power flyer for 3 mana in white. But this card, I think, is just not good.
Yeah.
Because our opponents trade their 1-mana 1/1 flyers with it.
Which
so
there are enough Delver decks running around that I don't think this will ever see play.
Yeah, I don't think we need to talk about this card anymore. It's sort of just poop garbage.
Next up we have Loyal Sentry, which is white for a 1/1 human soldier. When it blocks, destroy it and the creature it blocked. This was actually the Professor's #1 pick. It is kind of significant that it was downshifted from rare. Well, not significant practically, but that's pretty cool to me. Where I'm at on this card is it's a very powerful effect, but I think it's too easy to play around.
I feel like there's just so many creatures that ignore it, right? Like they either just go over the top, like fly over it, or it just gets removed very easily. Yeah. And it doesn't really add anything to the board when you play it. You know, you make it, and it doesn't do anything to progress your board state. Your opponent just kind of says, all right, 5 flying, or okay, yeah, I guess I'll lightning bolt it.
At most, it'll be a lightning rod to eat a removal spell. At best, the Boggles player doesn't attack for a turn. It is significant that the first strike doesn't matter, that, you know, the creature, like, they'll just never interact with it. They get to choose that on their own terms, and it never goes on the offensive.
Yeah. I think this card is a fine, like, sideboard card. Like you said, it's decent against Boggles. First strike doesn't matter. It ignores all that. All it has to do is say block you, and your creature's dead. You know, so you couldn't even I don't know, you could give your creature indestructible, right? Because it says destroy it when it gets blocked, or is it sacrifice the creature? If it's destroy the creature, then it doesn't get around indestructible. But is there anything?
It is destroy.
Is there indestructible anything in this format?
Yeah, there are 1 mana make your creature indestructible, I believe, especially in black now. I still don't think that now we're playing 2 bad cards.
It doesn't get around protection. So I can't give my creature protection from... Oh, no, I can, because I give it protection from white, and then it can't block me.
Yeah, you could block...
I was going to say, I mean, if your opponent's bad and lets you block and then goes, ha, protection from white, and then you go, it's already been blocked. But yeah, no, that doesn't work. Protection gets around it.
Yeah,
there's just a lot of ways this creature gets ignored. And you've wasted a card slot and a mana. Granted, it's only 1 mana, but like, it's just still very underwhelming. It doesn't really affect the board in a way that you want it. Something like this too. Mm-hmm. I would just rather have a removal spell. That's all I got on that guy. Well, I don't think there's anything else to say.
Right. I'm fine just going to the next one.
Yeah, next one downshifted from rare also, right? Pretty sure.
Was it?
Yes, I'm pretty sure that... Well, I think it got printed at Uncommon in, like, one of the weird Masters Edition sets or something. But every other set, I feel like it's been rare. Anyway, the card is Savannah Lions. So it is a white for a 2/1 cat creature. Basically, it's just another Elite Vanguard. So
yeah, and Elite Vanguard doesn't see play, and it has more relevant creature types.
Right. But I don't know, if we get enough 2-powered 1-drops, maybe we do start playing some really aggressive white decks.
Yeah, like you just play 4 2/1s and give them first strike. It could happen. I could see crazier things.
Throw a Fencing Ace in that deck.
No.
Yeah?
Yeah, give Fencing Ace first strike. Woo.
No. You pump it up. Yeah, I don't know that this card, I'm not overly excited about seeing this card.
It's a card that I felt like has always seemed like it should be a common.
Yeah. It's kind of funny how we're getting into this new era of power level where all these cards that used to be game changers, really, you know, like the raid on Savannah Lions, having 2 power for 1 mana is pretty strong, but
it just doesn't matter when
it's just kind of like at this point that doesn't feel like a rare anymore. So all right, well, that's all the white cards. Let's talk about the blue cards, the cards that matter.
So first up, we have Borrowing 100,000 Arrows.
How many arrows?
100,000.
I couldn't even carry that many arrows.
Could you borrow them?
If I could carry them, if you could lend them to me. What am I going to do with 100,000 arrows?
Well, you're going to pay 2 and a blue at sorcery speed to draw a card for each tapped creature an opponent controls. The obvious comparison on this card is Keep Watch, which is the same mana cost for an instant speed card that you draw a card for each attacking creature. That means your creatures or their creatures. The other card's way more versatile, and unless you're like Giga Drowsing them, it's all up to them.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Outside of Giga Drowse, are there any other relevant ways to tap down opponents' creatures? Like, are there any creatures that ETB and say target creature doesn't untap during your next untap step, or anything like that you'd want to play?
No relevant ones. I want to say that the most relevant tap effect is Curse of Chains, and that's only 1 creature.
Yeah, I was excited when I first looked at this card and saw that it was going to be common, just because I think it's a cool card. Mm-hmm. It's one of those really obscure cards from Portal, I think.
With like an awful name.
One of the Portal sets.
Mm-hmm.
What? That name is so funny. Borrowing 100,000 arrows.
I'm not in on it.
Funny, because they're just like, we're gonna pillow fort in our little ship and let them shoot their arrows at us, and then we're gonna pull the arrows out of our ship and shoot them back.
Oh, is that the joke?
Yeah, that's what. If you look at the card art, they're just on this fortified little boat, and there's just arrows raining down on the boat, and the flavor text is something funny along the lines of basically that, like, we'll let them shoot all their arrows at us, and then we'll shoot them back at them, and I don't know. But yeah, once I thought about it for a minute, I was excited about this card initially, and then I thought about it more, and I was just like, I don't know where this card goes. There are just much better ways to draw cards in this format.
The flavor text is Kongwing and Lu Su tricked Wei troops into shooting over 100,000 arrows at them to later use against the Wei at Red Cliffs. That was hard to pronounce.
Wow. That's some stuff straight out of
Compton.
No. Oh. I just forgot the name of it. That book that was written about the art of the art of war. It's a book.
The Art of War is a book.
Yeah, The Art of War, but it's written by somebody. Machiavelli. Machiavellian? Yeah, Machiavelli. I don't know. Anyway, that's something straight out of The Art of War right there. Let them use all their weapons against you, and then take their weapons and use them against them.
I thought The Art of War was supposed to be good strategies.
Obviously it worked, because I'm pretty sure that they defeated the Shu at Red Cliff with their 100,000 arrows.
Well, it worked so well, I'm not going to put it in any of my decks.
Yeah, neither am I. Let's move on. We're done with this. Next card on the list, Court Husser. 2 and a blue for a 1/3 Vidalcan Knight with Vigilance. Enters the battlefield. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put 1 in your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library. If white was not spent to cast Court Husser, sacrifice it. So this card is kind of interesting because it's 1 mana more for an Augur of Bolas, but you get bigger card selection, right? Because Augur is looking specifically for non-land, non-creature, but this guy can grab anything.
I think the more apt comparison is
it's one
Seagate
additional
Oracle.
card. I was getting there.
Oh, okay.
I feel like you always lump those cards into one thing, right? Seagate Oracle and Augur Bolas are always in the same conversation.
Yeah, it's one more. It's any card. So
it's
I think,
and it's one card more than it's one additional card to what Seagate Oracle gives you.
I think the white is a huge, like, having to pay a white unless you sacrifice it is a huge drawback. And the vigilance isn't a good payoff.
Yeah, because you're not attacking with your 1/3 anyway. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you are. Like, I think the vigilance is probably, well, no, because all the 1/1s are flyers anyway in this format. So
yeah. I think that I can't think of a single vigilance creature in the format that is played. If there is one, it's escaping me. I think vigilance is just it's just not very good. I don't think it's a worthwhile effect.
Well, on a body that doesn't have evasion, it's just very mediocre, especially when that body's a 1/3 also. But if he was a 1/3 with flying and vigilance, that would be nutter butters, I feel like.
I wanted this card to have
attack into
flash.
all your 1/1s, and then they can't attack you back with all their 1/1s. Like, that would be great, but...
Yeah, I think additionally the shell it goes in of blue-white isn't very good. I've seen a lot of people being excited about this card, and I just don't know what they want to do with it.
Right, I guess that's sort of the other big problem, too. Is like, I don't know that I want to be in blue-white just so I can play Court Husser.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's exactly right. I rank that very low. It's one of the better cards that we're getting in the set, and a lot of people are excited about it, but I'm gonna say I'm gonna pass on it.
Yeah, I think I would honestly just rather play Augur Bolas, because Augur is easier to fit into any shell, and it's 1 mana cheaper, and typically the shells that want this card are fine with the clause of just getting instants or sorceries. I mean, if we can think of a blue-white deck that is viable, that I think this card goes in there great, and it's going to be way better than Seagate Oracle is.
I don't want to say it's going to be better than Seagate Oracle.
How is it not better than Seagate Oracle? It's the same cost. It gets you an additional card deeper, and it has vigilance.
So
everything about it is better.
The few things I want to point at are, I believe that the best blue-white decks are ones that use flicker effects, and you can never pay the white when you're flickering the card, so it'll always die.
Yeah, but it says when it was cast.
Oh, is
not
that
when it enters the battlefield?
Oh,
right. It's a cast. If this was cast without white mana, sacrifice it. But you can flicker it, and it can ETB because it's not being cast.
Sorry, I did
right?
transcribe the card not exactly as it was written. It says, when Court Hussar comes into play, sacrifice it unless white was spent to play it.
Well, shame on me for reading your show notes.
Yeah, my bad. That's totally my bad. But
okay, you're right. In that case,
it doesn't work with Angelic Renewal. It doesn't work with any flicker
work
effects.
With Ghostly Flicker. You maybe would rather have the Seagate Oracle in that case then.
Yeah.
That clause there, entering play needing white, that clause makes it way too narrow.
All right, ready to move on?
Yeah, you're right. I'm down on this card. It's poopy.
Next up, we have Dragon's Eye Savants. They're 1 and a blue for a 0/6 human wizard. They have Morph, and it is reveal a blue card to flip it. When you flip it, you look at your opponent's hand. I think that this card is pretty much useless. Is that where you're at?
Yeah. Are there morph creatures in the format currently?
Yeah, there are.
I'm sure there are a few.
Yeah, Borch Allure Rangers is the most dominant one. And there are things like Fathom Seer that...
Does Borch Allure Rangers ever get cast as a morph creature, though?
It does. When you're fearing your opponent's shrivel or something, and you want to beat down, I've seen it cast that way. It's only one green to flip it back over. It's so rare, though, and I know a lot of people aren't even aware that it is a morph creature.
I always forget, because, yeah, it never comes up hardly, because you really just want to cast it as, you know, the 1/1 and then immediately use it to generate mana with another elf.
Yeah, it usually means you're losing.
Yeah, I can see that, so... Still kind of a neat interaction, you know, just knowing that if my opponent has Electrickeries or Shrivels or something, I can make this guy as a 2/2 for now and have a board presence of some kind until I'm ready to try to go off or whatever. Anyway, well, that's Borch Allure Ranger. He's better than Dragon's Eye Savant. So we spent Dragon Eye Savant segment talking about Borch Allure Ranger. Let's move on. So the next card on our list is a really cool one. I think this card's sweet. Ghost Ship. It's 2 blue for a 2/4 spirit with flying. It has blue, regenerate it, and that's it. Yeah. It was a common in the dark, but this is its first printing on Magic Online at common, which means if you're following the Magic Online rules when you play in paper, it is now legal in paper.
It's I think that it's one of my favorite cards that we got. I think it's pretty much completely useless. The one travesty is that they haven't oracled it to be a boat or anything. It's just a spirit.
I don't think this card is going to be great. I don't think it's going to make an impact anywhere. I think it's relevant that it can kill a Delver in combat.
Yeah.
But other than that, the only thing about this card that makes it great is the art. It's just a ghost ship.
Yeah, and did we say it's the first all-blue regenerator? There are blue cards that regenerate, but all of them require you to have another color.
Yeah, which is relevant, but I think very niche.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's kind of come up ever that you're like, I just really need a regenerator in my mono blue deck. Ghost ship.
It could be
we got our answer.
You're very resilient top end for a deck. But I think you're going to want like hexproof creatures or just use blue spells to protect your creature. Is that
artwork is... the new artwork's not that great. All right, we can move on. Sorry, guys. I'm looking at card artwork. Can we, for a minute, just take a second to say how cool the dark watermark is on the cards? Just that little half moon shape in the back. It's cool. I need to get some foil blood moons from this set. Oh, man. Because that watermark is sweet. So cool. The watermark, I'm just going to go off on a tangent here for a minute, but the watermark idea for this set was genius.
What was what is it? I don't pay that much attention.
All the cards have a watermark on them from the new set. So from their original printing, they have the watermark of that set symbol.
Oh.
Yeah, so all the cards that were printed from the dark in this new Masters have the dark half moon, sliver moon watermark behind their text. Same with, every card except for the Planeswalker Jace. I think it would have been cool if there was a World Wake watermark on it, but that's probably a lot for that text box.
Yeah, it already does enough. It doesn't need a watermark.
Yeah, that's already so much on that text box. But anyway, I just thought that was a sweet idea. Whoever thought of that idea is pretty much God's gift to Magic at this point. Because I think it's probably one of the best redeeming qualities of this set is that now I need to basically I need to replace all the cards in my collection with these watermark versions.
That's all of the blue cards. So let's move on to the black cards. And first up, we have my number one. I love this card. It is Relentless Rats. It is 1 black for a 2/2 rat. It gets +1/+1 for each other card named Relentless Rats on the battlefield. It also says you may have any number of Relentless Rats in your deck. This deck kind of builds itself, but I think it's going to take a lot of tweaking because, we get Dark Ritual to get this thing out there fast, and we have Unearth, so there are good supporting cards, and then we have, Echoing Strength or whatever it's called, the green card that gives all cards of the same name.
Echoing Courage.
That gives them all +2/+2, so we have an Anthem effect That's plus
It
2
makes
plus 2.
Echoing Decay really good for your opponent.
You know, Echoing Decay will...
Oh, no, it doesn't, because
Yeah.
they stack on themselves. Duh.
Yeah,
Gosh.
it'll never kill any of your rats unless they double up on them.
I always forget that clause. I don't know, the most important part of the card,
Oh.
the reason the card is great. I always forget about that, and I think that, like, Relentless Rat decks, a deck full of 3 mana 2/2s, and then I have to, like, remember that, oh, yeah, they're 2/2s, and then they're 3/3s, and then they're...
Yeah, they function like slivers. They're 1 mana more, and it is awkward trying to pay 6 on a turn, so you're probably going to be playing 1 rat a turn unless you can, like, unearth or something. But I think with the amount of red removal we have in the format, this could actually be a thing. I don't think it'll be ever tier 1, but I'm super excited to see what people do with the card.
Yeah, I think it's cool that the deck can now exist, that it's something fun that people can do. This has always been something that casual players love, you know, and now they can play it in an actual sanctioned format. They can take their fun casual tabletop deck and they can go play a Pauper Challenge or a League or whatever. I think that's really cool that we have that.
The thing about Relentless Rats is I know that before, I don't know exactly what they were, but they were like a $2 to $3 card because everyone who needed them needed like 30 of them. So now that it's at common, maybe that'll help, but now you're going to need all these Pauper players who also need 30 Relentless Rats. So I'm not sure what this will do with the price. It could be an expensive, weird card.
I feel like, yeah, if you're into the Magic finance and speculation, I don't really know that the common printing of this card is going to kill its price all that much. Like, it's still definitely something you should pick out of bulk, and you're probably going to get $1 or $2 out of it. But also of relevance for you PDH players out there, Pauper, Elder Dragon, Highlander, because Relentless Rats was printed at uncommon, you can use him as your PDH commander and then fill your deck with a bunch of common Relentless Rats.
I never even thought about that. That's hilarious.
That's kind of a funny a thing that can be now for the 2 people in the world that play PDH. All right, so Relentless Rats is sort of, I think, the most exciting one out of this set, but I don't, like you said, don't think it's gonna be great. I don't think it's gonna make a huge splash, but it's exciting. I think it's the one that everyone's the most hyped about. Our next card on the list for black, and this is the last card for black on the list, is Ruthless Ripper. So this is a 1 black for a 1/1 creature human assassin with Death Touch. And it has Morph. And to unmorph it, you reveal a black card in your hand. Ruthless Ripper is turned face up. Target player loses 2 life. I don't know. I think that this kind of goes back to the Loyal Sentry issue of Death Touch on a 1/1 in this format isn't really relevant.
You know, I want to say that this card is head and shoulders above the Sentry. There are black decks that could use this. Like Suicide Black may not be so excited as other stuff. Like Suicide Black is the one that I want to put this deck in. 3 is a lot of mana to get it to be face down. It's not unheard of for the deck to hit 3 mana, but it is kind of difficult a lot of the time. The Death Touch is going to help it get through, I think. And it being so easily flipped and them losing life, I think that this card is actually good. I'm not sure if it even goes in that deck, but I think it's close. So I want to keep my eye on it.
Yeah, I was going to say it has a little bit more play than the Loyal Sentry because you can play it as a morph, and it's very easy to flip. So it's a little easier to, like, I don't know, have combat tricks where you block with your morph or they block your morph and you unflip it. And
no one's going to know what's under your morph creature. No one's going to expect Ruthless Ripper.
Right, and there are a few other morphs in the format. I think that if this does find a home, it is going to be the Suicide Black deck. I just am not sure that this card is actually better than anything already in the deck.
Yeah, I think you're right. It does give it a bit of, like, it can actually block, unlike a lot of the creatures in the deck, and it can block well.
We'll see. I think we should keep an eye on it. I don't think it will be a big player in the format, but it's worth keeping an eye on.
So next up we have Balduvian Horde. So Balduvian Horde is 2 red for a 5/5 human barbarian, which is a good rate. When it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice it unless you discard a card. This was also downshifted from rare, and I think that this is one of the ones that might actually see play because there is a shell that would love this, and it is a Madness deck. A 5/5 is substantial. It gives a real top end to that deck. You get a deal on it, and you could potentially play another card. If the other card costs anything, you're probably not going to be able to pay that other cost.
Yeah, it seems like it'll be difficult to get to a point where you've got enough mana. All of the playable Madness cards, I think there's one that costs 2 mana. There's one that costs...
There's the one that costs mana. 1. That's a burn spell.
Then there's the 1 mana burn spell and the Basking Root Walla, right?
Yeah, Basking Root Walla. Those are really what's going to be played with this, I think. You can also just discard a land card or something that's extra and just get your 5/5 on the table. Like, the obvious comparison for me is Gathan Raiders. It's a morph creature, and to flip it, you discard a card. If you're Hellbent, it gets +2/+2, and it's a 3/3. So normally it's a 5-cost 3/3 that could be a 5/5 if you're Hellbent, and it has that morph cost of discarding a card. So maybe we could see a bigger, more mid-range version of our Madness deck and see some mix of Gathan Raiders and Balduvarian Horde.
I think I would just rather play 4 copies of Gathan Raider and have 0 copies of Balduvian Horde. My biggest issue with this card is that the Madness deck often is Hellbent. Often they're playing with no cards because they're discarding them. They're playing cards like Faithless Looting that are actually negative on card advantage. Mm-hmm. And so they rarely have cards in their hand because they want to kind of vomit them onto the field and discard them that way. And if you top deck Balduvian Horde, you cannot cast it.
But if the deck was more mid-range, they might have more expensive cards in their hand.
But do you want to have more expensive cards in your hand? I don't know that the deck wants to do that.
Not right now, but I could see a version that might want this card.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not very high on it. I don't see it. I could be proven wrong, which I'd be fine with being proven wrong. I think that we need more good mid-range decks in this format. I just think the Gathan Raiders is probably much better in this slot, and I don't know that you don't want Gathan Raiders and Balduvian Horde. Mm-hmm. Plus, like, you do have to your Balduvian Horde is never coming down on turn 4. It's always going to be later in the game.
Unless you're getting rid of that land or something.
I guess, unless you're just discarding an extra land, you can. I just see a lot of downside to the card.
Yeah.
Where the upside, I feel like other cards have the same upside with no downside attached, you know?
Mm-hmm. So are you ready to present the next stinker?
Yeah, this one's a winner chicken dinner, Cinder Storm. This spicy nugget is 6 and a red for a sorcery that deals 7 damage to a creature or a player.
Are we going to see this in Tron?
I don't think so.
The answer is no.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bad card. That's all I really want to say. It's the most damage I think we've seen on a single spell that doesn't have X in it, but come on, just play an X spell. I think that...
Yeah, if you can generate the mana to cast Cinder Storm, just play Rolling Thunder.
Yeah, or Kavarik's Torch. You're going to do 1 less damage, but then later you're going to do like 3 times more damage. Just don't bother with this card.
Yeah, this card's a stinky pile of doo-doo.
So next
Lit it on fire and threw it on my doorstep, and I opened my door and there was a flaming pile of Cinder Storm, and I was like, oh no, you crazy kids. The crazy kids in this scenario are Wizards of the Coast. and my doorstep in this scenario is a pack that I open, and there's Cinder Storm in it. At least it's not a rare. Actually, Cinder Storm might be better than some of the rares in this set.
Ooh.
Have I said that this set's kind of poop garbage except for the commons?
You have.
Oh, okay. Just want to make sure I got that out there.
Are we ready to move on to Crimson Mage?
Yeah, I think so. I'm done.
So Crimson Mage is 1 and a red for a 2/1 human shaman. It has an activated ability of 1 red, and it gives a creature haste. We have a 1/1 that just taps to give a creature haste, and that's not even played, and I don't think that the 1 extra power really gives us much here, especially with it costing more to give a creature haste.
If it was a 2/2, I might feel differently. I don't like 1 toughness creatures in this format at all.
Yeah,
like right. If a creature has 1 toughness on it, it better have some big upside for me to want to even think about playing with it.
Or cost like 1 mana, and even then you're just like looking for 2 mana or 2 toughness.
Well, even then we've already looked into Savannah Lions.
Yeah.
A 1 mana 2/1 in Loyal Sentry. It's just not worth it to play a 1 mana 2/1 that's just going to trade with my opponent's Fairy Miscreant or Pestermite that's already probably gotten value.
Yeah, and I don't think that there's enough, I don't think there's a creature good enough that you're going to give it haste. There's just better ways to give your creatures haste.
This card, however, I'm pretty high on. I think this card is really good.
This next one?
But it's Frenzied Goblin. It is a single red for a 1/1 Goblin Berserker. And it has, when it attacks, you may pay red. Target creature cannot block this turn. I think that we're starting to get the tools for like some sort of mono red boss sly, just play all the 1-drops and a couple Titan Strengths or something and just kill your opponent really, really fast and go under them. The only thing that's really been missing from that deck is a falter effect of some kind. And now we've got Frenzied Goblin.
I'm going to interrupt you there. So you're talking about Red Deck Wins, which is a deck, and we do have Goblin Heel Cutter, which is much better than this card. That's why I'm not huge on this card, is because Goblin Heel Cutter is repeatable. It's bigger. You don't have to pay that 1 red. People are saying this might go in Goblins. I don't think so.
I've never seen the Red Deck Wins deck list before.
I actually have a video.
Really?
If you ever want to watch anybody play it, watch me play it.
I want to look into this because I literally didn't know that a deck like this existed in the format.
Yeah, it plays like all of the 1 mana 2/2s that are in red, which there are a lot. Usually you have to do something like play a creature for them to attack, or they can't attack alone. But that deck is pretty good. It's not tier 1, but it is pretty good actually. I respect that deck.
Now that I'm actually looking at a deck list, I don't think there's room for Frenzied Goblin in this deck.
There is room for one of the cards from M25.
Jackal Pup?
Yeah. I want to skip straight to Jackal Pup if that's all right.
Maybe you would replace Goblin Cohort with Frenzied Goblin. It's the 1 mana 2/2. I don't know, that's pretty good though.
Yeah, the 1 mana 2/2s I don't think we're doing anything with.
Yeah, you're right. Now that I'm actually looking at a deck list. So, I don't think Frenzied Goblin does anything, so.
The card is Jackal Pup. It's 1 red for a 2/1 Jackal. When it takes damage, you take that much damage. That may seem bad, but I want to say that in the Red Deck Wins, that it is better than the Jackal Familiar, I believe it's called, where it's a 2/2 that can't attack alone. I want to say that they want more consistency with their attacks. Sometimes it's hard to keep playing creatures like that. I do think it's interesting that this card has been oracled from a Hound to a Jackal. Both irrelevant creature types, but we're more accurate now.
So, my thing about Jackal Familiar is that it's a 2/2. And Jackal Pup is a 2/1.
Yeah, that is the sticking point. Like the drawback on Jackal Pup can be pretty big. Like if you attack into a high-powered creature, you might just die. But
yeah, I don't know if I would play Jackal Pup over Jackal Familiar, honestly. I feel like there are enough, like you're gonna have enough creatures that your Familiar is probably never gonna be alone. And there's the Valley Dasher in the deck that is a 2 mana haste creature. So you could feasibly go Jackal Familiar on 1, Valley Dasher on 2, and be able to attack with the Jackal and the Valley Dasher right away. And you're usually not concerned about any one drop. Your opponent could play blocking it and just killing it right away.
Maybe then you're right that it could be one of the
There's
Goblin cohorts.
there's also the Mud Brawler cohort that has
Ooh.
haste for 2 as well. And then it gets +1/+1 if you control another red creature. So you've got 8 2-mana 2/2 haste creatures that can attack with the Jackal Familiar.
I want to say that is not the card I would want to cut at all. That card, that haste creature, the Brawler, is just, it's really good.
Oh, well, that's not what I'm saying to cut. I'm using the Mud Brawler
to attack?
Yeah, I'm saying I'm using the Mud Brawler to support my argument that Jackal Familiar is better than Jackal Pup.
Maybe you want to play...
the deck has 8 2-mana 2/2 haste creatures that attack alongside it.
What ends up happening is that they remove all of the creatures around your cohorts and things, so you're left with a Jackal Familiar and a Goblin cohort. You don't play a creature that turn, and you just can't attack anymore. So maybe going to a Jackal Pup so that you can attack more consistently would make the deck better. Jackal Pup is kind of worse because you can't attack into those 1/1s anymore, so maybe it doesn't fit into the deck, but I think it's close.
That if I was going to make a cut, it would be Goblin Cohort. The 1-mana 2/2. Goblin Cohort can't attack unless you've played a creature spell this turn. Like, if we're going to make a cut for Jackal Pup, I think it would be a Goblin Cohort. Because I think the downside of Jackal Pup is less of a downside than Goblin Cohort. But the upside of Goblin Cohort being a 2/2 is pretty high also. So I'm not really 100% sure which one's actually better. But I would lean towards the Jackal Pup.
I think at the end of the discussion, I want to say that neither Frenzied Goblin nor Jackal Pup make the deck.
Neither of them do?
Yeah.
Okay.
You ready for the next card on the list?
This card, yes, I think is great. Hordeling Outburst. So 1 red for sorcery. Create 3 1/1 Goblin tokens.
Yeah, I think this card is going to make an impact. There are plenty of shells that want this. I think the one that wants them most is Goblin Storm. If you're not super familiar with Goblin Storm, it just uses Keep Watch and Distant Melody to draw tons of cards off of all of these goblins you've created and plays things that make more mana based on the number of goblins you have. And it really can be explosive. The 3 mana doesn't matter so much. I'd say that the extra 1/1 is just going to be hands down worth it. I think Hordeling Outburst is probably the greatest addition to the format.
I agree. I think that's the best card in the set for Pauper. I think this card is super fun time, happy days. I feel like I wanted to say more about this card, but I just don't really have a lot to say about it, except that it's great.
Yeah, I think that's
and
it.
It's not, I don't know, it's pretty intuitive. Just cast your 3 mana spell and get 3 1/1s, kill people dead.
Next up we have Pillage, which is 1 red. It's a sorcery. It says destroy target artifact or land. Reddit was trying to figure out if this is worth it. The destroy target artifact is the effect you really have to look at because we already have Molten Rain that does damage. So this is of course a sideboard card that can switch gears and be your artifact destruction. I'm not sure if we want the artifact destruction that bad. I want to say that I'm pretty low on this card.
The only time I think I would want this card as opposed to Molten Rain would be if I was playing against like a Tron deck that had the Automaton in it, because you can kill the Automaton or you can kill a land, but that's just so fringe. I just feel like if you're a deck that wants that sort of ability, you're a deck that's capitalizing on the burn, and so you'd rather have Molten Rain.
Yeah, I don't think you're boarding in your land destruction against Affinity. It's kind of tempting because you're like,
well,
you
board in your land destruction against Affinity, but we've got the monkey for that.
Yeah.
Use our land destruction.
Yeah, your land destruction is just destroy target artifact, and you can get deals on that. You can do that for a red. You can do that for a red and have it be repeatable. So I think I'm not very excited about Pillage. I'm even less excited about our next card, though.
Yeah, Our next card is Skeletonize. It is 4 and a red for an instant, deal 3 damage to a creature. If that creature dies, its owner gets a 1/1 black skeleton that has black regenerate. This card is just so bad.
Why did they even put it in the set is what I'm wondering. Like they've made Bolt cost 5 times as much and gave it downside.
This is clearly for limited. It's not a good removal spell, but it's clearly just for draft and limited when, it's just one of those removal spells. I don't even know that I want to play this in my draft deck. Like, deal 3 damage to a creature and then give that controller a 1/1 creature that has regenerate. Seems counterintuitive, but I don't know. Maybe I haven't looked at this set very much from a limited standpoint, so maybe the removal is just very bad in general, or maybe I don't know. But this card is definitely not playable in Pauper when we have, for 4 mana less, Lightning Bolt that also has no downside and goes to the face.
Yeah, well, they did print Lightning Bolt in this set, so...
Yeah, that's the other thing, too.
Can't be that bad.
If you're going to draft this set, just try to pick up Lightning Bolts and pass your opponents the Skeletonizes.
Yeah, no one's going to be playing that card. I think it was a waste of a slot. Meh. So...
Have I mentioned that I think this set is poopy garbage?
Well, we're getting a little bit out of it. Next up, we have our green card, which is Anok Survivalist. It's 1 and a green for a 2/1 Hound Shaman. It has Megamorph, which is exactly like Morph, but when it flips, it gets a +1/+1 counter.
It's Mega!
Yeah, I thought Megamorph was stupid when it was printed. Like, I was like, Mega, come on. Anyway, so to flip it, it is 1 and a green. And when it flips, you can destroy target artifact or enchantment.
I had to mute my mic because I was laughing because it's funny because Megamorph is a dumb keyword. It's really stupid, but I'm actually quite high on this card. I think this card is quite good.
Yeah,
I don't think you want to bring it in against like Affinity. It's kind of slow. You have to play it on turn 3 and then wait till turn 4 to Megamorph it. And then once it megamorphs, it's a 3/2, which doesn't do anything against their creatures. It trades with Frogmite. That doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
But I think that if you just need to be able to kill like a big artifact or a big enchantment, I think that this card is fine. I still don't know that you would play it over other artifact and enchantment removal that's already available. But the upside on the card is quite high. Getting a 3/2 body out of it, I think, is relevant. I think it's sort of a metagame decision and it's sort of a deck building decision. Like, there are just much better artifact and enchantment removal spells available that you wouldn't put Anok Survivalist in your deck over any of that just for the 3/2.
Yeah.
There would have to be some, I think, metagame choices that go into that and some deck building. You really need to be able to make use of the 3/2 body.
The biggest thing this card makes me want is just I want Reclamation Sage. This card makes me want Reclamation Sage in the format.
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll ever happen, but I think it's within the realm of possibility. I could see it happening. What I see when I look at this card is I have been trying to figure out a way to get Mirror Landshaper to work. If you're not familiar with Mirror Landshaper, it is a 2-mana 1/1 mirror creature that can tap and turn a land into an artifact. So then I just want to play a whole bunch of ways to either protect the Mirror Landshaper, retrieve it from my graveyard, and then just blow up artifacts and enchantments. You wouldn't really have to board, because if they were unfortunate enough to run an artifact or enchantment in their deck, you've already got that covered, and you can have this sub-theme of destroying all their land in a repeatable way and getting creatures with it. This card kind of helps with that. I'm not sure if it pushes it to where it would be playable.
I think that you're pretty right on that it needs to be in some shell that just really needs a lot of ways to kill artifacts and enchantments. can make use of a big giant body. But again, I don't see that I would rather have this over any other artifact enchantment removal available already. But I do think it's nice that we have the option now of playing Inox Survivalist.
We'll play this card when they print liquid metal coating at common.
Gross. All right. Our last card on the list is an artifact, Assembly Worker. It is a 3 generic for a 2/2 Assembly Worker. Wow.
Wow.
Wow. It has tap, give an Assembly Worker +2/+2.
+1/+1.
What did I say?
+2/+2.
I don't know why I said that. Probably because I'm dyslexic. But yeah, Sean's right. This card's cool because you could block with it, you could tap it, and now all of a sudden he's the 3/3.
Yeah, I actually had never considered that it could pump itself, but there are other assembly workers in our format that aren't just changelings. We have Self-Assembler, which is a very good card.
Yeah, that card's already great anyway.
And we have, I don't remember what it's called, but it has like Convoke or something, I believe. It's not so great. I don't think that makes Assembly Worker remotely playable, even in like a mud shell where you don't have any colors.
You don't want to try to play Assembly Worker Tribal with all the changelings and all the actual assembly workers?
No, that sounds awful.
That sounds like just worse than the Relentless Rats deck.
Less fun.
Yeah. So should we talk about our top 3
Absolutely.
picks from the set?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can do that. So my number 1 is Hordeling Outburst, because this card is really good, and I think it's really good. And that's why I chose it as my number 1. And I don't really know what more to say about Hordeling Outburst, except that it's just good.
Yeah, it's a very simple card.
Yeah, very straightforward, and the rate is fine. 3 mana for 3 1/1s, which is just very good. My number 2 pick is Inox Survivalist, just because I think that this card is quite good. I don't know that it really fits in the format like we talked about. There are probably better options in the format, but I think in a vacuum, this is a good card, and I like that it's in the format and that we kind of have access to it. And my number 3 is Relentless Rats. Just kind of, I'm excited that this card is in the format. I'm excited that casual players now have the option of playing a deck in sanctioned play online, or going to their store where people are playing Pauper at their LGS and they've got their sweet Relentless Rats deck. And honestly, I feel like this deck could steal games. You know? Like, it could just, if your opponent's not ready for it, they don't have a Disfigure open when you cast your first Relentless Rats, and then they just start to kind of get out of control, and eventually they're bigger than all the removal in the format.
It does always pose a strange question for Spellstutter Sprite, because if all you're doing is playing 3-drops, you really have to get up those fairies pretty quick before you can actually start countering with Spellstutter, I think.
Yeah, countering a 3-mana spell is sort of a tall order in that deck. Like, it can happen where you just flood the board with fairies, but typically your Spellstutter Sprite is countering a 1 or a 2-mana spell.
Yeah, right? we have Peat Bog, so I think turn 2 Relentless Rats, turn 1 Relentless Rats is possible, and then turn 3 is obviously possible. So it could be a deck. I'm excited. I might play around with it.
So this has nothing to do with anything, but whenever I think of Peat Bog, I think of Elliot.
Who's Elliot?
Pete's dragon. I don't know why, but I always just imagine when someone says the card Peat Bog, I don't know why, but I think of the dragon Elliot just like lumbering through the forest.
Thank you for that.
I know it's random, but that's just what I think of.
So from my top 3, I have Relentless Rats at number 1, because with a single card it spawns an entire deck. That's enough for it to earn my number 1 spot, and who knows, it might be good.
Yeah.
I like it better than Slivers. And for number 2, I have Hordeling Outburst. Very simple. There are shells it goes in. It could make some kind of Is it Desperate Ritual? No. Whatever the ritual is where the guy's cutting his hand and you can discard any number of cards and give all your creatures that many pluses. Yeah, I think...
I can't remember its name, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of... And of course, goblins. There's so many ways. And if you're not familiar with Gobbo Briar, look up a video on that deck. It's pretty sick. You can, like, it uses Bloodbriar that gets bigger every time you sacrifice a permanent, and like Sparksmiths, and there's all of these cool synergies in the deck, and getting more goblins off of one spell I think might be something it wants. And then for my number 3 spell, or 3 card, I have Jackal Pup. I think that it might find a home. There's not very much that's giving it a run for its money. Court Hussar was like maybe the other one, and I spent my whole time crapping on that card during our review of it, and so I'm not big on it. If I were to say another card was my number 3, it would be a reprint, but I think that's a cop-out.
Yeah, that probably is a cop-out. I think that this set had some exciting things in it, particularly Relentless Rats. I think that it had a couple powerful downshifted cards. I like that Savannah Lions is a common now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I kind of like the idea of just having a bunch of 2-powered 1-mana white creatures. I don't think it'll be good, but it gives people the option to play with those cards. And
yeah, and we have plenty of 3-power 2-drops in white that are really good. So maybe there is a deck that just
wants to play as many overcosted bodies as they can and just try to force through
and then maybe
damage.
Maybe main deck some Lumithread fields that just give all your creatures +1/+1, and then you can morph it for it to just be an extra creature. And then we have the guy that gives all of your creatures +1/+1, +0/+1 already, whatever that Veteran Armorer. So I think there could be some kind of cool deck there where you're playing creatures that are bigger than they're meant to be. And I have included just the travesty that is they printed Red Elemental Blast and Blue Elemental Blast at Uncommon. They didn't choose to print Pyroblast and Hydroblast because they hate us. And they printed these versions at Uncommon because they hate us.
Did I mention that this is just poop garbage?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, okay. Just want to make sure that we're on the same page there. Yeah, I was kind of disappointed at first, too, because I was really excited. And it also doesn't help that when you look at the stupid set symbol, if it's not rare or mythic, it is extremely difficult to tell the difference between an uncommon and a common looking at it on a computer screen or on your phone.
Yes.
I'm sure in paper it's probably a little easier, but like it was so dang difficult for me to figure out what all the commons were.
Yeah, I had to wait for Reddit to like post like these are all the things that were printed at Common, because I was like, is that common? Oh, we got this. Oh no, that's uncommon according to Reddit. Like it was super confusing. I hate when they do that. Maybe let's shift away from using silver or something. Maybe make it more clear.
Well, it's not really a big deal if it's I don't think it's silver. Like the difference between silver and black isn't a big deal. It's just that the commons, because they had to have the 25 be legible, the commons also look like uncommon because they're not just solid black, you know? So, but anyway, I was extremely excited and then extremely disappointed. Also, the artwork on these are really cool.
Yeah, that's why I wanted them as Hydroblast and Pyroblast.
I love the finger hands, and he's like, yeah, shooting you. Alrighty, well, so that was our set review. If you guys had any cards that you thought we should have mentioned or anything that we missed in the cards we talked about, go ahead, email us, hit us up on the tweeters or something, let us know what you guys thought, because we would love to hear your discussion. Anyway, let's talk about our Pauper Challenge from this week.
Yeah, there was some decks in here that I'm super happy to see. It's always heartening to see new lists that we haven't seen in the top 8, so I think we should jump right into it. There's also like a callback that I thought was dead. It's the number 1 list It is Stompy. I had heard that Elves, this was a revelation to me this week, Elves is the reason that Stompy is getting beat out of the format. It doesn't interact with its opponent, and
Elves is just more fast and aggressive? Is that it?
Elves can just gain enough life that they don't care. They have like infinite chump blockers if that becomes a thing that they need to do. But this one beat them all and took number one. It's the Elephant Guide version. Not much to it. Just basic
I feel like
old.
that should be the only version.
Yeah.
Elephant Guide is just so good. And Solano Edgewalker is just such bull crap. And putting an Elephant Guide on that card is just... it's like... It feels like you're selling your soul to the devil. Like, you're just like, here, Satan, take a piece of me. Give me unlimited power.
Yeah.
I hate Solana Ledgewalker so much. But holy crap, is that such a powerful interaction. Like, that should just be what you're doing. If you're playing Stompy, that is your plan A. Put Elephant Guide on something. Hopefully Ledgewalker.
Yeah, they're only running 3 Ledgewalkers. But... I don't know, there's so much to this deck that I love. I think that the sideboard is like completely an answer to Elves. They're running 4 Epic Confrontation and 3 Gut Shots. I want to say that's all for Elves. Just let's find a way to interact in our mono green deck.
He probably just knows what I'm bad to and what I need to be ready for. Mm-hmm. And you know, he's got his 4 copies of Scattershot Archer to deal with the Delver decks that are probably going to be the most dominant presence in the tournament. And then the rest of his sideboard is just devoted to the deck that he can't beat, because Stompy is one of those linear decks that we talked about, kind of touched on earlier with my tangent of, I'm not going to play a deck that wants to interact really with you. I'm just going to play a deck that executes its plan A and is hard to interact with itself. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of what Stompy is.
Yeah.
So he just kind of said, I'm going to ignore all the other decks in the format because I'm just going to do Stompy and I'm going to stomp them to death. And then I'm going to have Scattershot Archers because Delver's everywhere. And the rest of my sideboard is going to be dedicated to my bad matchup so that I can give myself as much chance of winning as possible. And I think that's a great strategy to go into with a deck like this. And
yeah, and
I'm curious how many elf decks he played against in the tournament. I would like to know that information. Yeah. But I think that he had a great plan of attack going into this event, and he took it down.
Yeah, I think the cards they're cutting are like life gain for the burn matchup, which is already a good matchup, and he's not even playing the mutagenic growths. I think this is fantastic. Good job. _dissonance _
Yeah, I think that this is a great list. I think it's a good place to start if you want to build the deck. I would seriously just copy this 75 and jam games with it and try to understand what was the thought behind Dissonance's choices here, because I think he made some great choices. I think this is a very, very well-tuned 75. Second place, we are looking at Blue-Black Alchemy. There are a few things in here that are sort of interesting to me. The first being the 1 copy of Prohibit. I feel like that's usually not something that is typically played. They usually rather play Exclude, and this deck has excluded that card from its list. And the next thing that it's playing is Soul Manipulation, which is a card that I didn't even know existed, and I'm reading it for the first time right now.
Really? This card it's bonkers. I want to say that it was played more in blue-black flicker decks because you need your creatures a lot in that deck. But
yeah, and I didn't really play a lot of Pauper when blue-black flicker was super popular.
Yeah,
so
it is only creature spells that it can counter, so I want to say that they cut the excludes to just play Soul Manipulation.
This card is awesome with Muldrifter, though.
Absolutely. It's good with everything in your deck.
Choose one or both? Like, how is that? Your turn 3 or whatever, you make, or whenever, heck, turn 6, evoke your Muldrifter, draw 2 cards, your opponent casts a spell, counter your spell, put my Muldrifter back in my hand. That's bonkers banana berries.
Yeah, you can choose to just get back your creature on their end step. It's almost never dead. It's fantastic.
Yeah, this card is awesome, and I feel silly that I seriously had no idea it existed. I mean, that just is, I think, with how relatively new I am to the format, I
Yeah.
think kind of plays a part into it that I just don't know as many of these cards that are seeing less play currently, but this card is sweet. I'm trying to figure out why they stopped playing it.
I think
Like,
probably
is
the lists that you were looking at were probably the bigger version of this deck that didn't play so many creatures. If you don't have any creatures to get back, exclude is better.
Let's see, but I feel like all the lists are playing at least 4 Gurmag Anglers, some number of Augurs, and then they've typically got Muldrifters. Like, I feel like that's just stock at this point. And I feel like it ranges between like how many Augur Boluses they're playing and how many Muldrifters they're playing. Like, some are like lighter on the Augurs, some only have like 2 Muldrifters, some have 4 Muldrifters, but I feel like that Triforce, that trifecta of Augur, Gurmag Angler, Muldrifter is pretty stock at this point. I don't know, maybe I just don't look at enough deck lists.
I was surprised to see the 2 soul manipulations, usually only 1. Anyway, are you ready to move on to number 3?
Yeah, there's not really any. The only other thing in the sideboard of this deck that I think is spice is the Zombie Outlander. It's a blue and a black for a 2/2 with protection from green. That's it. I think that that's an interesting card. I think that it's got a lot of application, just with the amount of Stompy in the format and elves and stuff like that. Having a 2/2 with pro green is probably pretty relevant in keeping you alive in the early stages of the game.
Yeah, and it kind of just sticks around forever, and then it evades. Like I've seen Zombie Outlander do some really stupid things.
I think that's an interesting innovation. I think it's definitely a meta decision, but I like it. Okay, now we can move on.
Next up, we have this mono green Tron deck. I'm just going to go through this deck real quick. We have 2 Accomplished Automaton, who never wants you to speak to him or his tiny son ever again. And then we have 3 Fangren Marauder to capitalize on that Automaton, 4 Fierce Empath, 3 Ulamog's Crushers, and 4 Wretched Griffs round out the creature base. I think you were saying earlier that you don't like Accomplished Automaton in this list. You'd rather just play 4 Fangren Marauders and 4 Ulamog's Crushers?
Yeah, and then as you kind of talked to me about it, I was kind of a little more sold on it, but I still think that if you're playing a deck like this, I think you should just be all in on Ulamog's Crusher. Like, you should just have 4 of that guy. I feel like he's the most powerful, most linear thing this deck is kind of doing. You know, it's kind of just like, I'm going to make all the mana, I'm going to play a Crusher. Did you answer it? You died. Oh, you answered it? Here's another one. Do you answer this one? No, you didn't? You died. Right? Yeah. And I feel like the Automaton is a little more fragile than the Ulamog's Crusher. Because it's an artifact, it can get taken down by artifact removal, whereas the Ulamog's Crusher really only gets killed by Doomblade in this format. I just see a lot of upside to the Crusher, but we did kind of discuss a few things that the upsides of the Automaton.
Yeah, like making the 1/1, the extra 1/1 can be sacrificed to like maybe your Wretched Griff, or you chump block with it or something, and it triggers the Fangren Marauder, so it ends up being 2 artifacts that die and your Fangren Marauder can trigger off of. It makes Wretched Griff cost 1 less. And then I think the biggest reason to play it is that it costs 7, so that you're not waiting until turn 4 to play your bomb. You're stabilizing a little bit quicker. Ulamog's Crusher can be clunky.
Yeah, and that was the one big upside that I saw when I was looking at this deck list initially, is that Automaton could be played on turn 3, whereas Crusher cannot be played till turn 4 at the earliest.
Yeah, this deck is getting very consistent turn 3 Tron with the crop rotations and the expedition maps.
Yeah, well, and the Ancient Stirrings. Because you can always just go turn 1, Tron piece, make a Chromatic Star, and then you essentially have green mana, and you don't have to play a forest or a green producing land. You can still just unload your Tron pieces and filter your mana, which Ancient Stirrings helps that too, but I do like Accomplished Automaton because of the ability to, like you said, stabilize the board on turn 3. The fact that it is a huge roadblock and then comes with another body makes it a lot more difficult for go wide strategies to go wide. Because now that's like, okay, well, I'm wider than you. I can attack here and potentially trade one of my creatures with your 1/1 or just eat it as a chump blocker, but then I still lose a creature to your automaton. And so it kind of disincentivizes go wide strategies from attacking you, which is sort of their thing. Whereas
it is,
yeah.
I hadn't considered this before, but it is a lot better against bounce spells. You can just make that 1/1, and then they're like, yeah, bounce your automaton, and you're just like, play it again, make another 1/1, which isn't a very good rate. You're playing 7 mana to get an extra 1/1 a turn, but it's not.
Well, if your opponent's the one bouncing it, then
yeah,
that's actually better upside than if you made an Ulamog's Crusher and they bounce the Ulamog's Crusher.
And that kind of tends to happen, I think.
But so I think the two biggest upsides to the Automaton are that it costs 7 mana, so you can play it on turn 3, and that it has synergies with Fangren Marauder. I think those are the two biggest upsides of the card.
Other than that, the only things I think that are of note are, it's playing the spheres and the stars like you would expect. It's got the Prophetic Prism. It's got Tree of Tales as like you can sacrifice it to a crop rotation or something and trigger your Fangren Marauder. And then I think out of the board, it's pretty much like you would think. There's like a Penumbra Spider, and then I guess it has Naturalize instead of, it's not trying to be cute with any of the upside destroyed artifact or enchantment. It's just like, I want Naturalize. I'm just going to do this at instant speed. Bam.
I think the sideboard's pretty straightforward. So let's talk about the next deck. We don't need to touch on it for very long because this deck is, we've talked about it before. We're looking at Skred Delver. The deck list is fairly stock. The only thing that I'm seeing here that's a little bit different are they're playing a lot more cantrips, I want to say. Oh, no, they're not. They're playing 2 Brainstorm, 3 Ponder, 4 Preordain, which I think is interesting that they're playing 4 Preordains over the 4 Ponders. And the other change is they're playing 3 Lightning Bolts, 3 Skreds, and a Vapor Snag, which I do kind of like. I like the synergy that Vapor Snag provides with the rest of your creatures.
Yeah. Being
able to reset your Fairy Miscreants, get redraws, or your Spell Setter Sprites. If your opponent doesn't really see it coming, and they cast a creature into your mana and you can Vapor Snag your Spell Setter Sprite and get a recast off of it, it's pretty powerful interaction.
The only other thing is there's some Curfew in the sideboard, but that's not much.
And Curfew kind of is along the same vein of Vapor Snag, of just getting basically redraws and rebuying all your ETB creatures.
But next up we have Tireless Tribe. It's main decking a Giga Drowse, but other than that, basically it's just Tireless Tribe.
I like main decking Giga Drowse quite a bit.
Makes it a lot easier to go off.
So everything else seems pretty straightforward about this deck.
The next deck is Elves. This is the land grant version of Elves. So it is playing 9 forest, 4 land grant, and it is mono green. It's main decking a Viridian Longbow, but it is just Elves. Nothing too spicy out of the board. It is running Magnify, that kind of is an answer to Electrickery. Magnify is 1 green for an instant spell that says all creatures get +1/+1 until end of turn. That's your opponent's creatures, that's your creatures. Hopefully you'll just have more and it'll make it more worth it. It's pretty spicy, but yeah.
Yeah, I think its best application is saving your creatures from wrath effects, because outside of the one that I can never remember the name of that has buyback, Evankar's Justice. Outside of Evankar's Justice, I think all the wraths in this format are like -1/-1s.
Yeah, like Shrivel and
Electrickery, and so this saves them from that. Plus, it just has the application of your opponent taking twice as much damage as they thought they were going to take. So, 7th place, we're looking at Tireless Tribe again. This deck looks, the 75, I think, looks almost exactly the same as the other 75.
I think you're right.
They've got one Giga Drowse in the main deck.
Yeah, it looks pretty much identical.
Yeah.
The board is a little bit different. They have like a Fragmentize and like Piracy Charm, but that's pretty much the same. And then number 8 is Scred Delver again.
Yep, and this one playing 3 Ponder, 3 Preordains, 2 Brainstorms. They're only playing 19 creatures. They cut a Ninja the Deep Hours. They cut down on a Cantrip, but they're playing an additional copy of Dispel in the main deck and 1 Echoing Truth in the main deck, which is kind of interesting. I don't know that I am a big fan of the Echoing Truth in the main deck.
Yeah.
It serves the role of returning your fairies to your hand, but I kind of don't like the fact that it's going to return all of them. So if I have 2 Spellstutter sprites in play and I need to bounce a Spellstutter sprite to counter, say, a 2-drop,
yeah,
I can't, because it's going to return both my Spellstutter sprites to my hand. And then if I don't have 4 mana, I think it's more for things your opponents are trying to do. You aren't trying to disrupt them, but I just don't know.
It does have upsides of like you return more of your Spellstutter sprites. So if it's not a 2-drop, it's a 1-drop you're trying to counter, or you have a Miscreant in play already.
It gives you more utility.
You got back 2 counter spells instead of 1, or you have a whole bunch of Augur of Bolas sitting on the field. Well, you've returned 3 of them, so now you're eventually going to be getting 3 cards, hopefully. So, and then of course you can interact with your opponent's enchantments and non-creature artifacts. It's just permanence.
Yeah, it's permanence. So I don't know. I don't know that I'm super high on the Echoing Truth. It's got upside. It's got downside. I think honestly I'd just rather have another Cantrip. The lands, though, he's got 4 copies of Evolving Wilds and 3 Ash Barrens. I feel like that's a lot of Evolving Wilds. But what did the other deck have? How many?
I thought that's pretty much normal, is the 4 of Evolving Wilds, and then I've seen people shaving the Ash Barrens.
Really?
Yeah. It's like...
Oh yeah, this deck is the exact same mana base. I guess I'm just behind. I haven't been keeping up with the deck list. I'm playing a full 4 Ash Barrens and only 2 Evolving Wilds, but
it can make some of your opening hands
awkward. Yeah. So not a very exciting top 8.
I think it was exciting with a mono green Tron deck and Stompy coming back a little bit. Like, those are things that I was excited to see.
Yeah, seeing Stompy make a resurgence, I don't know that I'm excited about that, but it's relevant. I guess it's exciting in the aspect of it's not dead. Keep it on your radar. The mono green Tron deck I do think is kind of exciting, just because we've not seen that in a long time, and I think it's cool that it still exists and that it can do stuff. Anyway, well, I guess that's it. That's all, folks. That's the show. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, you can subscribe to us on iTunes and follow us on
YouTube.
The YouTubes, and quick shout out to our sponsor one more time. Mad props to them. We appreciate them and supporting us and our show. And if you guys could support them, go check them out. puremtgo.com. Great articles, deck lists, lots of awesome resources for Magic stuffs. If you want to contact us on the show, you can always email us at commonknowledgemtg@gmail.com. Follow us and support us on Patreon. Patreon.com/common-knowledge. And Sean, if anyone wants to get in touch with you, where could they find you?
They can find me at Lobbert8 on Twitter. They can YouTube Lobbert. They can search in that little search bar Lobbert, and my videos should come up. I have that mono red deck wins. If you want to see how that deck functions, I had a really good run with that. It's one of my favorites. Yeah,
and if you want to follow me for some reason, you can find me on Twitter at bclark_ck. I'll just forewarn you now, I'm not very active on social media. I think the only thing I do is retweet stuff about the podcast. I guess if you want information and news on the podcast, follow me. And you know what? Maybe if I had more followers, I would be more active. Also, I just never know what to say on social media.
Bye!
Bye!